A long time ago, God saw that the people he loved, the Israelites, were suffering in the country of Egypt. Because he loved them, God chose Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt and away from their suffering. He wanted Moses to lead the people to the beautiful land he had promised to their forefathers. During their journey, the Israelites sometimes forgot that God had delivered them from slavery, and they complained to Moses. But God always provided for them. When they were hungry, God provided food called manna. When they were thirsty, God turned bitter water into fresh water they could drink.
Obey God and all He tells you, and He will bring you to the promised land.
We promise to obey.
God had told the Israelites that if they were willing to obey Him, He would treasure them forever. Then God told Moses to bring Aaron back up with him to the top of Mount Sinai. It was here on Mount Sinai that God gave Moses the 10 Commandments. These were God's commandments that the Israelites, as His people, were to obey.
These are my 10 Commandments, Moses. Remember them and tell them to my people. Do not worship other gods. Do not make idols in the shape of anything in heaven, on earth, or below the waters to worship. Do not misuse my name. Keep the Sabbath day holy and use it to worship me, not to work. Honor your father and mother. Do not murder anyone. Do not commit adultery. Do not steal. Do not tell lies about your neighbors. Do not desire what your neighbors have.
Moses told his people the commandments God gave them to follow. Then God called him to come back up Mount Sinai. Moses left his brother Aaron in charge of the Israelites. And even though Aaron and the people knew the commandments they were supposed to obey, they decided to disobey God.
Aaron, we've given up on Moses and this God he loves so much. Well, he's given us nothing but pain and suffering. We want our own God, a God we can see and a God we can touch.
Are you with us, Aaron?
We're going to worship our own God. You're in charge, Aaron.
Give me your earrings. Go to your friends. Tell everyone to collect their gold earrings and bring them to me. I will make you a God you can feel and see. A God you can touch when you need to pray.
While you have been here with me, Moses, my people have disobeyed me. They have convinced your brother Aaron to make them a golden calf to worship.
When the Lord finished speaking to Moses on Mount Sinai, He gave him the 2 tablets of stone that were written on by the finger of God. But when Moses found the Israelites disobeying God's commandments, he became extremely angry.
I am ashamed of you. I am most ashamed of you, Aaron, my own brother. What did these people do to you that you would disobey God's laws?
Moses, you know how difficult these people can be. What did you expect me to do? They demanded a God they could see, so I asked them for their gold jewelry. They gave me the gold, and I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf.
Moses was very angry with Aaron for being so weak. God was also angry with the Israelites. The Israelites knew they had sinned, and they mourned about their sin. Moses went back to the top of Mount Sinai to ask God to forgive the Israelites. Once again, Moses was with God. During this time, God rewrote His laws on 2 stone tablets. He gave Moses many specific instructions for the Israelites to follow. Because Moses had been in God's presence for 40 days and 40 nights, his face glowed so much that the Israelites could hardly look at him. God told Moses to build a tabernacle. So the Israelites began to work each day, building the place to worship God. Many things were needed to complete the tabernacle. The Israelites offered what they had. They were obedient to God. The Israelites brought so many offerings that Moses had to tell them to stop. Moses was pleased because the people had been generous, and the builders had all they needed to complete the tabernacle.
The tabernacle that God told us to build is almost complete. Each of you has done what God asked. All of you have worked very hard. Each of you is blessed.
From that day forward, the Israelites traveled only when the cloud over the tabernacle lifted into the sky. When the cloud stayed put, they did too. The Israelites knew that the presence of God was in the cloud. Much time had passed since the Israelites obediently built the tabernacle as God had instructed. They had traveled far, and they were starting to become impatient again. The people were not satisfied with the manna God had given them. They complained until they got what they wanted. God sent them quail, more than they could even count. But God punished the people with a deadly plague because they had complained about the manna he had provided for food. The Lord told Moses that one man from each tribe should be chosen to explore the land of Canaan. He told Moses it was the promised land. God told Moses to instruct the people to bring back some of the fruit of the land for all to see. After 40 days, the men returned.
We are glad you have safely returned to us. Now tell us everything you saw in Canaan, our promised land.
Canaan is a good land, Moses. It is fertile and beautiful, just as God said.
He's right, Moses. It's beautiful and a paradise for crops and cattle. But there is a serious problem.
It's the people, Moses. They're much larger and far stronger than we are. There's no way we can defeat them in a battle.
Quiet, all of you. You're lying because you're afraid. We should go up and take the land. We can do it.
Except Caleb and Joshua, none of the explorers trusted God, and they wanted to scare the people into being afraid to enter the promised land. Even in God's presence, the stories they told spread among the people that night, and the people started to complain.
Why is the Lord taking us into that land only to let us die?
Those people will take our families away. We should choose a leader and go back to Egypt.
The land we explored is a good land. Don't turn against the Lord. Don't be afraid of the people in that land.
We will swallow them up. They have no protection, but we have the Lord. With God's help, we can defeat them.
Yes, we can do it.
The Israelites didn't believe that God would protect them and help them take their promised land. To punish the people for their disbelief, God told Moses that none of the people who disobeyed him would enter the promised land. Instead, the Israelites would have to wander in the desert for 40 years. Even though they had learned over and over again that it was wrong to disobey God, they always seemed to start complaining again. God told Moses he would give the Israelites a sign to end their grumbling.
The staff belonging to the man I choose will sprout, and I will rid myself of this constant grumbling against you by the Israelites.
Each man who was head of one of the 12 tribes of Israel gave Moses his staff. Among them was Aaron, Moses' brother, who was head of the tribe of Levi. God said the staff that sprouted would show them which man he had chosen to be the high priest. Not only did Aaron's staff sprout, but it budded, bloomed, and produced almonds overnight. Even after God chose Aaron through the miracle of the staff, the people did not stop their grumbling. Again, they had no water to quench their thirst, Again they began to complain to Moses.
Moses, take your staff and gather all the people together. Speak to that rock, and it will pour out its water.
Moses raised the staff over his head and struck the rock twice.
You did not believe me, Moses. I told you to speak to the rock, but you struck it in anger. You did not trust me or honor me as holy before the people. Neither of you will lead the people into the promised land.
Soon afterward, Aaron died. On and on their journey continued. They passed through many countries, but they still had not reached the promised land. Finally, the Israelites reached the Jordan River. Beyond it lay Canaan, the promised land. Moses told the people God would go before them and take possession of the promised land. Moses was 120 years old. He was no longer able to lead the Israelites. As God commanded, Moses would not cross the Jordan River to go into the promised land.
Follow Joshua. It is what God wants you to do. Be strong and courageous, Joshua. You must lead this nation into the land God promised their forefathers. Remember, God goes before you, and He will be with you. He will never leave you or forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not become discouraged. God is always with you.
For Moses, the long journey was over. He gave his last instructions to the Israelites. Then he blessed them for their journey into the promised land. God showed him everything from the top of Mount Nebo. Then Moses died.
Tell the people to get ready. It is time to cross the Jordan and take the land God has promised to us.
God stopped the flow of the Jordan River so that the Israelites could cross into their promised land.
We will tell our children and grandchildren about this day. When our descendants see this altar, they will remember how the Lord, our God, stopped the Jordan River and brought His people into their promised land.
Without Moses to lead them, and without God's willingness to forgive them for their repeated complaining, they never would have made the difficult journey.